Okay, let's just talk Lakers, Suns. Let's start there. That's the biggest brand in the NBA. Laker fans, here's the reality with Anthony Davis. Celebrate when he's great and tolerate when he's not. That's who he is. The good news is I still like the Lakers, and the series is far from over. Of the many things LeBron James will go in the record books for, LeBron has won 60% of his playoff series when he lost the first game. All time, the NBA percentage is 21%. So he's 3 times better. Remember, the Suns were favored in this game. They're not favored in the series. They were favored yesterday. The Lakers are favored in the series. Why were they favored? Well, the Suns have been off for a week. They were the better rested team. They're younger, had a ton of energy. It was the first playoff game for Phoenix in 11 years. You could feel the intensity and the juice in the arena. Phoenix at home. This was a celebration of a once proud franchise. Now the series simmers down. Both teams are equally rested. Chris Paul's not 100%. And Anthony Davis, who's never been highly motivated, just wildly talented, has always needed to be pushed and prodded. And he is, because he was so bad. We've all worked with an Anthony Davis in our life. Somebody that's super talented but doesn't have a ton of fire. You got to kind of light a fire under him, is the old saying. Well, Anthony Davis admitting after last night's game, yeah, I was terrible. I'm horrible. I'll be back. By the way, Anthony Davis, who was the best high school player in the country and then led Kentucky to a national championship as a freshman and has been marvelously talented forever, should never have the worst plus-minus in any basketball game he ever plays in. He not only did, nobody was close. He was awful. But I do think he'll be the key factor going forward, and I think the Lakers win the series. Why? DeAndre Ayton's a very talented big for Phoenix. Suns are small, but he's only 23. I don't believe he's going to lock down AD for the series. And the Suns don't have a lot of bigs. Their backup center appears to be Dario Saric. I didn't know he was a center. 6'6" Jay Crowder's another one of their biggest guys. Listen, they're talented, but they're not big, and now Anthony Davis is motivated, which you have to poke and prod him and light a fire to get the best out of him. That's reality. But when you get to a playoff series, it's always been a book, not a pamphlet. Regular season, you're just handing out flyers. Not a lot of depth. Message isn't long. You look at a little tape. Team just flew into town. That's not what a playoff series is. A playoff series is a book with chapters. Every chapter can be different. And LeBron James has been in a lot of these playoff series, and Frank Vogel has been in a lot of these playoff series. So, regular season, this happens all the time. But the idea that Phoenix is going to beat the Lakers 4 times in the next 10, 12 days, I don't buy it. I don't think they have the experience. I don't think they have the size, and that's okay. Nice win for Phoenix. They deserve it. I grew up, and the Phoenix Suns were fantastic. They beat my Sonics regularly. In fact, the last time I cried during sports may have been the Suns beating my Sonics with Paul Westphal and Alvin Adams, and it may have been Connie Hawkins and Gar Hurd, and I forget who it was, but they were great for years. It's good to have them back. Chris Broussard, NBA analyst for Fox Sports, now joins us live, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. Well, I mean, I said it earlier with AD. You got to just put your arms around him when he delivers and tolerate the rest, because he's not always highly motivated. He's just wildly talented. Kind of your takeaway from Game 1 loss. Does it become a Game 2 loss and a Game 3 loss? How does it land for you, Chris?
No, look, I think that LeBron does this a lot in Game 1s. He feels it out. You can go back last year to Portland Game 1. They lost. People start thinking, oh, the Blazers are going to sweep the Lakers. Of course, LeBron writes himself, sees how the Blazers want to play him, and then they win the next 4 games. Same thing happened in the next series with Houston. You can actually go back throughout LeBron's career and see at times he has used Game 1 to see what the other team's going to do, and then he responds, and it usually works out. So he was passive yesterday, shooting too many threes, but I think there was a strategy there. As far as AD, look, the Lakers, you can't consistently expect great performances from AD this year. Now, I'm not saying for the rest of his career. I expect him to bounce back next year to kind of the old AD that we saw last season. But for whatever reason, this year, he's not himself. So I think, Colin, throughout this series, he's going to have a couple of great games. He's going to have a couple of solid games. And he's going to have another bad game probably. Not as bad as yesterday because that was horrible. But I just don't think he's going to be the consistently great player throughout playoff series for the Lakers. He was bad. Look, it's not just his numbers, which were horrible yesterday, and his plus minus was twice as bad as any other player in the game. It's that he let DeAndre Ayton, in his first ever playoff game, gain confidence. Like, he should have slapped Ayton around, figuratively, and outplayed him and showed him this is a different level now. We're in the playoffs, son. I'm about to show you how it's done, and then next year you will be better in the postseason. But now he's got DeAndre Ayton thinking, hey, I can dominate in this series because he did dominate yesterday. And so now he's going to have to contend with a very confident DeAndre Ayton throughout the rest of this series. So it was a horrible performance by AD. I think the Lakers still win this series, but he's going to have his hands full now.
The one series that I do think has some resonance, we know the Clippers have struggled late in games. Last 6.5 minutes against the Mavs, not a good defensive team, by the way. Not a good defensive team. Luka didn't score a ton down the stretch. The Clippers were atrocious. It's one of these things, man. It's when you have a certain style or a liability, Chris, and then it resurfaces, even hints of it in the playoffs, it gets in your head. I mean, I this is like a baseball team with an atrocious bullpen. I look at this series and I think, this was supposed to be the redeem game. This is worrisome if you're a Clipper fan, is it not?
Absolutely. Look, now they've lost 4 straight playoff games. That may be playing in their head for all we know. And as you said it, throughout the season, really, let's be honest, going back to the bubble playoffs, they have had trouble closing games, which is baffling, Colin, when you have 2 guys in George and Kawhi who can break down the defense. Kawhi is an excellent mid-range shooter. That is critical in late games, in late moments. But they're not able to deliver. Playoff Rondo was supposed to fix that. And this is not on Rondo because he played well yesterday. He gave him the 3-point lead, Colin, with the 3-pointer and the free throw midway through the fourth quarter. And then they fell apart, and he couldn't solve it. They just degenerate into one-on-one play with either of their 2 stars going at it. And of the top 6 seeds in each conference in the playoffs, the Clippers were the worst in clutch time play throughout the season. So they could lose this series. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And look, when the Clippers signed Kawhi Leonard 2 years ago, they felt we are going to have the best player in every series we play going forward. Even at that time, remember, he's coming off the championship.
Yeah.
And it was arguable. Is he ahead of LeBron now?
Yeah.
Is he ahead of KD? It was arguable. So they've played 3 series, or this is the 3rd one. He hasn't been the best player yet. It was Luka, it was Jokic, and it's Luka again.
Yeah.
And I want to see Kawhi go to Ty Lue. I want to see him go to Ty Lue and say, look, give me Luka. I want him. And I get it that they're running pick and roll and they're creating switches. And so Kawhi's not going to be able to be on him for 40 minutes. But I want to see Kawhi take up the challenge like we've seen LeBron or Jordan or Pippen or any of these other great defenders do in the past. Kawhi is 29. He's 29. He's not 39. He's not 35. He should be able to go full bore on both sides of the floor. And apparently he can't do it because now he's more of an offensive player. When he was a great defender, he didn't have to carry the offensive load. But I think he needs to turn back that clock to help the Clippers in this series.
There's so much to chew on. The first round is so fun because this year, as Joey said, there's really a lot of even series. So, I mean, the Knicks-Hawks, to me, I do think it's a huge win for Atlanta on the road. But, I said this earlier. The Knicks they're all in. Yesterday I got Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, Reggie Bullock, and old Derrick Rose. But you know what? Randall was awful, and they still were in there. I did as I watched Trae Young, I thought, boy, points come a lot easier for Atlanta than they do the Knicks. But what did you make of the performance? Is it a death knell? Knicks lose at home. What did you make of it?
I picked the Knicks in 7, and I think this is going to be a close series, and it's going to be a long series. So the Knicks aren't out of it by any stretch. But what bothers you if you're a Knicks fan is the way Trae Young was able to live in the paint.
Yeah.
I mean, they're one of the best defensive teams in the league, right? And he was able to just break them down, and especially on that last shot. And he just got in the paint and finished. He only took 3 3-pointers, so that shows you how effective his penetration was.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a great coming out party for Trae Young. And Colin, we almost are seeing this next generation of stars emerge. Ja Morant was great. Trae Young was great. I never thought of Dylan Brooks as a future star, but he's been balling the last few games. DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker. I mean, so it's nice to see these young stars. Let me say this about New York. And I'm in greater New York. I love the Knicks fans. I love their passion. I love Spike Lee. But why? Why do they insist on picking on the opposing star? This is starting to look like Reggie Miller light. All right, Reggie Miller Jr. with the way they win at Trae Young, and he's going back at them. And if this becomes a knockdown, drag-out 7-game series, and Trae is going back at it with the fans, it'll be a lot like Indiana, New York back in the 90s, which is great for us. It's great for the fans.
Yeah.
But it could end up in heartbreak again for the Knicks fans.
By the way, let's talk about Ja Morant. He did it against the Spurs in that playing game. He did it against the Warriors. Now, Donovan Mitchell did not play last night for Utah. That is I still think Utah wins the series. But you watch Ja Morant, and it's like there's some Westbrook, although I think he's a better natural shooter. What do your sources say around the league? What do you see? I mean, he is something special, right?
People around the league love Ja Morant. And look, I love Zion, and we know they were in that draft together. I can't say I wouldn't take Ja Morant over Zion. And Zion's going to score more. But Ja Morant is obviously a better playmaker.
Yeah.
He runs the offense. He's not much of a shooter at this point. He's 30% from 3. But as you said, you can see room for growth, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can see that eventually he should be a good 3-point shooter. He obviously can get in the lane when every once. I was thinking about him and Westbrook watching that game yesterday, and you made good points, that comparison. But he is a smarter player than Westbrook.
He's more under control. Yeah, no, he's totally under control. He really is. For a kid, he really is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's more of a true point guard than Westbrook.
Yeah.
Westbrook's more of an athlete. He's more of a true point guard. And he showed that he's got guts at the end of games where he can hit these big shots. So, look, Memphis doesn't have that much talent, with all due respect, but he's carried. Last year they were on the cusp of the playoffs.
Yep.
This year they're in the playoffs. So that kid is special.
Yeah. By the way, it is. I kind of roll my eyes at Giannis is going to be the face of the league 3 years ago, and I said, "Listen, man, he doesn't shoot." I do wonder if it's getting worse. That 10-second violation that everybody complained about. You know what that was? Is everybody in the league has a kind of a free throw routine. That was in Giannis's head, and I thought, "Oh, this is a problem now. This
Absolutely.
is game 1 of a series." I watched that and I thought, oh, boy, now it's one thing to struggle at the line. It's another when you're sitting there doubting yourself. What did you make of the game and Giannis is shooting down the stretch?
Yeah, look, I picked Milwaukee in 7 in that one. So, again, I think it's going to be a tough series. But this is the Bucks' problem. This is why I don't see them being able to beat Brooklyn. If Brooklyn's healthy, no way I see them being able to beat Brooklyn because – who is their go-to guy? It's Chris Middleton. We saw it. It's Chris Middleton. Giannis, yes, he's great. He's phenomenal, all that. But at the end of games, when they need a bucket, heck, even during games, they go to Chris Middleton. And Chris Middleton is a very nice player. He's an all-star here and there. But if he's your go-to guy, no. And he had a great shot yesterday. Congrats to him. But that's their issue. And that's why Chris Middleton can't be the go-to guy on a championship team.
That's right.
He can be that on a pretty good team, which is what they are. But Giannis, until – and look, I've had a formerly great player in the league and now who works in the league tell me he thinks Giannis is a 2. Is the second guy precisely because you can't go to him when you absolutely need a bucket. Look at all the ones around the league, Luka, LeBron, we could go on and on. When you need a bucket, you can give it to them. Giannis, you can't.
That's right.
If he's on the perimeter. So they got to, to me, get him inside more and even have him post up more because they got to give him the ball close to the basket.
Good stuff. Chris Broussard, Fox Sports. Great seeing you on a Monday. Wild weekend. We got games every night. Chris, great seeing you, man. Thanks.